Chase is gonna be very mad. We're supposed to be cutting stuff.
7:30.
Okay, if we can get started, if we can, please, and thank you. Okay, good evening. The time is now 7:30. There is a meeting of the Committee of Infrastructure and Planning and Economic Development Committee on this date, Wednesday, March 16, at 2022 at 7:30 p.m. in the Automatic Chamber and via Zoom conference. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda of the city's website for the meeting link. Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien Sr. and Alderman at Large Melvin Warren Jr. are co-chairs and presiding. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Camo is here. Alderman Gaveo.
Here.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Moran.
Here.
Alderman Cathy.
Present.
Alderman Clemmons.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Also in attendance is Alderman Wilshire and Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development.
Very good. Before we start the meeting, I would like to take a moment of personal privilege to discuss. It seems to have a situation has arrived that I most regrettably do regret. There was a situation at the last particular meeting. I am a man that, like any other man, that has his faults. If you can ask my wife of 39 years, she has a whole complete list of them. But she still loves me, and I love her. But because of the faults, I do try to be perfect, but unfortunately, I don't hit that objective all the time. The situation at hand, I am deeply remorseful. It has never been my intention to affect this board or any other member of the board with any type of malice or anything, but instead to be, as my position as vice chair and chairman of this committee, to be most helpful and work with you on the particular matters. So again, allow me, at this is personal privilege, to express my remorse on the situation, and I thank you for listening. Okay, moving on, there is no public comment, but at this particular time, we did have, yes, Alderman Cathy.
Legislative inquiry?
Pardon?
Legislative inquiry?
I'm sorry.
PI.
Yeah, please.
Why is there no public comment at an official meeting?
Because it's a work session, but if the board wants to, I don't see any objections, but traditionally in work sessions, it has not been the case.
Well, I think based on the agenda we have before us, it is labeled as committee, and I believe the public would assume then there would be public comment as it is listed on the agenda. So I feel like it would be fair for them to comment, since they probably have an expectation that that is what would occur on this evening.
Alderman Tebow.
I would normally say that, but we've been saying all along, when this meeting was coming up, you said it last week, and I think you mentioned it maybe last night, or somebody mentioned it, that there was gonna be no public comment, that it was just gonna be a work session.
Correct.
We're not voting on anything.
Right.
And so that was the case, I told my constituents, there will be no public comment. You can come and watch us. We're just gonna be talking. So that's how I viewed it. Now we're changing it, and we really don't have many people here. We have one or two people, so.
Well, that's been my personal opinion. Alderman Como.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to agree with Alderman Cathy. The agenda was published on the city's website, and it does include public comment as being a regular committee meeting. So I think it would be appropriate to follow the published agenda, since that's what was available to the public.
Alderman Tebow.
So, the two or three people that I see online spoke last week in length about this. So what difference are they gonna say? And it'd really be nice if we could work on the issues and talk to the people that have come here to be part of the committee so we're not here till 11 o'clock. That's how I view it. I mean, we've heard from Mr. Wingate, we've heard from Ms. Ortolano. We know where they stand. We haven't done anything since they spoke. You
you
cannot
don't.
speak right now, Ms. Ortolano.
Well,
You-
don't
you-
speak about me, you don't
Well, you can
know.
speak about me and if they allow you to speak. I'm not gonna allow you to interrupt me when I'm trying to talk. We had a meeting last week where we asked everybody that wanted to come out and speak to speak. If we told the same people that they could speak again this week, they would be here. I know they would be here.
Alderman Wiltshire.
I think we have to follow the agenda. This is what was posted, this is what we should do. That's my opinion.
I understand, but I'm allowing the aldermen to express their point of view. Alderman Clemmons.
I think we need to have public comment.
Thank you. Alderman Tyler. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think due to it being on the agenda, we should have public comment tonight.
Okay. Alderman yes,
I concur.
okay. Alderman Caffey.
For the record, does not matter who spoke last week or what they have to say. They are part of the public and they can bring their comments during public comment if they wish to
Wow.
do so, regardless of if we think we know their point of view or we do know their point of view. It is their right to speak during public comment, and I think they would be fair to give them said right and privilege.
Alderman Theobald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just gonna say, to my people out there, Ward 8, if you're watching this on Channel 16, I am sorry. I was told there would be no public comment. I'm sorry that you're not able to come out and speak. And I feel that's probably the same way for people who were here last week in other wards. Because at that meeting, it was clearly said that there'd be no public comment tonight. So it's not fair to those people that believed there was none. So we can have it for the 2 people that are here, but it's just disappointing that if we were gonna have it, everybody should have been allowed to come and speak. That's all, we gotta be fair.
Thank you, Alderman. Your point is well taken. Regrettably, that is the case, but your point is well taken. Alderman Chetty.
Yeah, so, let's, just to get on with it, I move that we allow public comment.
Well, I am kind of waiting for the motion. Thank you, Alderman Jettie. Is that a motion?
It is.
Please make the motion.
I did. I said, I move that we allow public comment.
Okay, there's a motion to go into public comment, because the reason the motion, we're getting a little bit off the procedure. So therefore, recognize the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Everybody's 100% present, so no need for roll call, so we'll go by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have public comment. If you wish to discuss, please, in the chamber, if you're on Zoom, please place your hands up so you'll be recognized. You will be allowed the same courtesies, that is our rule in public comment, of 3 minutes. You will be warned at 30 seconds that your time has elapsed. And also, too, please, when you speak, please state your name and your address. So, I see the first hand, Ms. Ortolano.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. To those folks from Derek's ward, you shut your TV off, hop on your computer and join the Zoom meeting, and you can give public comment. That's a solution. Also, I do have different input. A week has gone by, and a week gives you time to reflect on things. One of my issues is the the garbled language that Alderman O'Brien gave at the beginning of this meeting, the personal privilege, the situation at hand. He never actually told us what he was talking about. But I do have a comment on the meeting, the last one I went to. I felt the motion made was extremely confusing. I asked the city, the legal office, to put Mason's manual of administrative privileges or legislative rules into the clerk's office so I can look it up. It was structured like a hearing, but you didn't allow any questions, and that's what a hearing would allow. It was just really difficult to figure out what was going on in there. And whatever your personal apology was tonight, Alderman O'Brien, you didn't say what it was to the public, so we have no idea what you're talking about. But I don't think that meeting was run correctly. Also, with regard to not allowing public input at these work groups, I think it's a big mistake. When the first 2 meetings were not publicly put out there, I got an email from Tim Cummings saying you will have ample opportunity to give public input as more meetings are held. Then you set up workshops and cut public input out. I would have liked to have been at the 2 downtown improvement committee meetings and given input down there. I spent time after those meetings ended speaking to the business owners and had an opportunity to chat. That's helpful. That doesn't happen unless you allow input, and you're not allowing that. Also, with regard to surveys, we fight a lot about surveys. Some board members say, 3,000 surveys on the Telegraph, what does that mean? The parking guy who came and talked said he got about 1,000 responses. He considered that excellent. Is 1,000 excellent? Do you people think 1,000 is enough? And if 1,000 is excellent in his mind, are 3,000 from the Telegraph unique surveys good enough? I don't know, but we seem to fight a lot about the quality of surveys. I do think the parking guy made a mistake because he said 1,000 was like 10% of our 90,000, but it's really 1%. So, but he still considered that plenty statistically significant. I also feel that we need to do
30
and should
seconds.
have done a cost analysis on what we should charge for a space should they proceed, but I'm still not a proponent of doing these barriers. I really think it's an issue that should be brought before the public and voted on and taken care of in that space and time. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing nobody in the chamber, we revert back to Zoom. Anybody else would like to speak?
This is Gary Wingate. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, so I just found out.
Mr. Wingate, can you give, besides your name, you did identify yourself. Your address, please, and you do have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so Gary
Please stop.
Wingate, 15 Sherman Street. I really didn't find out about this meeting until later this afternoon, and to be honest, I did not expect to do public comment. But since I have the time, I really feel like I'm not representing myself, but the 60 downtown businesses that really are, against the ordinance. Well, let me just put it this way. There are four lanes of traffic that are unobstructed. That's the biggest thing they want. And of course, they want more parking. So I'd just like to have you listen to them. I was a little disappointed that when you picked the committee that you really didn't pick maybe one person out of those 60 businesses. There's a lot of people who would have liked to have been on this committee. Julia over at Sharon Medical wanted to be on it. I would have personally liked to have served. Phil Bouchard over at Corbo Insurance. I mean, there's many more that I think would have given you more of a representation of what downtown businesses are, since they're such an important part. I know there's about maybe 5 or 6 restaurants, but there's a lot of businesses that are really speaking out for themselves and their customers. But anyway, the 4 lanes of unobstructed traffic is something that, flowing north and south that everybody wants. The other thing, I know you picked your dates, but I think a lot of people would like to go from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Memorial Day is on the 31st of May. So let's say June 1st to, Labor Day. Not a lot happens in May, and I think people would like to have, better traffic during that period of time. I did talk to the mayor, and I did talk to Tim Cummings several times about pay and play. I told him a month and a half ago that my wife and I had gone to Portsmouth to Moxie's and to Rose's, 2 restaurants, and they had told me, the general managers told me, I shared with them that they did charge for spots. At that point, they were charging $6,500 for spots, and there were spots just in front of the boundaries of the restaurants. On each side of both of those restaurants, they have non-restaurants, and there's no outdoor dining there, and there's no extended outdoor dining. It's just in the boundaries of their stores, which I think we should be doing also. And then next to them, the parking was for the actual non-restaurant businesses. So I know the mayor and Tim like to compare things to Portsmouth, and I would like to copy Portsmouth on that. I think they should charge. You still have at least a month to charge. I think Portsmouth went down from the $6,500 to maybe $3,000 or so. But I think there should be some skin in the game. I mean, these guys, you're giving them something and you're taking from others. My
30
last
seconds.
concern is Jaja Bell's, next door. She is not even open in the evenings and for dinner. Last year, she had 60% of that block. I know that the Bank of America general manager and also Dental Gentle didn't like that at all because they get a lot of older customers. I like her business, but she has small cafe tables and chairs. I'd like that to come up in your conversation. Through the years, she's just had them right on her sidewalk, and I think she's even put a couple on Factory Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing again, nobody in the chamber, anybody on Zoom? Seeing no one, we're gonna end the public comment and move on to communications. The clerk, please.
There's a communication from Alderman at Large Melbourne Moran, procedural clarification.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place it on file. New business,
Point of order.
pardon,
I would like to make a motion.
yes.
At last week's meeting, there was some confusion, and I'm glad I see this on the agenda regarding co-chairs of this committee. And I just want to make a motion that solidifies an agreement that Chairman O'Brien and I had prior to the formation of this meeting, this committee by President Wilshire. We had a conversation about this, and I thought it was very important for the two committees to come together. And Alderman O'Brien and I agreed that he should lead this meeting as the presiding officer, and out of mutual respect, continue on as co-chairs. Last week I was blindsided. I'm not sure if that was what Alderman O'Brien was referring to at the start of the meeting. If so, I truly do accept those comments as genuine. But as a point of clarification and mutual respect, because we've had now twice a comment about respect amongst our membership, I would move that this committee vote, after I receive clarification from Attorney Bolton, that Mike and I are both the co-chairs of this committee, with him as the presiding officer, and defining the presiding officer as the person who runs the meeting.
There's a motion on the floor, kinda a little bit, I'll have a discussion on the motion. Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. I think that this, motion, clarifies what I hope was, the agreement between the two gentlemen, and, hopefully we can, do this and move on.
Alderman Kathy.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion. Seeing as how the meeting last week, there was a lot of confusion, I would like to amend that Alderman Moran become the presiding officer over the joint meeting. As a good show of faith to the public, sort of clean the slate, start fresh, and then we can move on from there.
Alderman Dowd.
On the proposed amendment, this was always referred to infrastructure, and the chair of infrastructure invited PEDC to join us to have a better handle of the group to make the decision. But it's always been in past practice for all the years I've been on this board that when it's referred to a committee, that person is the lead chair.
Alderman Wilshire.
It was referred to both committees. So it was referred to infrastructure and PEDC. I will agree that in the past, that the infrastructure committee, if it were lands and buildings, would be the presiding chair. And I know in the past that you've had meetings with infrastructure and PEDC. If it were a PEDC matter, then the PEDC chair would be the presiding officer. So that's how I see it.
Totally agree. That's the way we always done it.
Yeah.
Alderman Clemmons.
I will not be supporting the amendment. I think that, with all due respect to Alderman Moran, he is a new alderman. He did a good job last night at chairing the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting, but I think that Alderman O'Brien has a little bit more experience there, and plus for the fact that traditionally, this particular topic has come before both of these committees before, and it has been Chairman O'Brien who has led those in the past when this topic has come up before both committees in last session. So for those reasons, I can't support this amendment.
Alderman Chatty.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we're supposed to be a collegial group. You know, we're all supposed to be working towards, you know, the one goal of what's best for the city. It's unfortunate that this issue has come up, but the two gentlemen involved seem to have resolved it between the two themselves, and we ought to respect the agreement that they've reached. So I'm against the amendment and in favor of the main motion.
Alderman Moran.
So I would say, thank you very much, Alderman Cathy. You know, not something I planned on, but I would say that in the hopes of giving the people's business as much attention as we can versus dynamics between other board members, I would also not support the amendment.
Alderman Cathy.
I withdraw my amendment, or
Thank
my
you.
motion to amend. My mistake.
You are recognized that your motion has been withdrawn. We are back to the original motion, which is declaring, if I got this right, Alderman Moran and myself as co-chairs. Any further discussion?
And you as the presiding officer.
Me as the presiding officer. Thank you. Further questions on the motion? Alderman Dow.
Yeah, I'll be supporting the motion, and I hope we can just put this behind us and let's work on the actual problem before us.
Okay, thank you. Any other further comment? Alderman Wilshire.
I have a lot of respect for both chairs, and I'm sure we can get past this, because we're all here for the betterment of the city, and we all took an oath we were gonna stick to that. We were gonna do what's best for the city. So, thank you both.
Thank you. Any other comment on the motion? Okay, seeing none, voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, there's none opposed. Okay, the chair is you know, we did get a little bit ahead. The chair's unsure, but seeing that there's no objection, we are accepting the communication and place it on file. Am I correct in the assumption of that? I thank you all. Unfinished business,
There is none.
new business resolutions,
There is none.
new business ordinances.
There is none.
Okay, tabled in committee.
I will make a motion to remove from the table ordinance 022008.
There's a motion to remove from the table 022-008. Any discussion on the motion? Alderman Dowd.
You know, support the motion, but are we just removing it from the table now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll save my
Yeah, by removing it from the table will allow us to
discuss.
open up the hearing and to discuss it, is the intention. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, the motion carries. At this particular time, I would urge the community to welcome,
Oh,
yes,
I have a couple more questions before we welcome the committee. Can we discuss this first before they come up and have comments? Because I would like to discuss, I have no issue with the three people, but there's no one that's firmly against it that was appointed. And I think that in order for us to work together, we need to discuss that as a joint committee first before we welcome these fine folks up here to talk.
Well, I can partially answer so that you can completely understand. These are three citizens that are very busy, like most of us are. And I've asked them, and they have shown interest, and I thank them for their community involvement in coming forward. Some have been asked earlier in the game. if they are willing to make this commitment to this particular committee. And somewhere just about right at the night when the hearing came out was when the last person was. It was a little bit and soul searching. So a lot of this was done prior to the meeting that we were discussing, because anticipation as part of the moving of the chips on this particular issue. That's how the committee was formed. Alderman Kathy.
I'd like to second Alderman Moran's, I don't know. if-
Comments.
Well, he didn't.
Comments. I'd like to.
Okay,
his-
second the comment. He
Yeah.
didn't actually make
Yeah,
a motion.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to second his comments and just add that, to my understanding, under Mason's, particularly section 634, the committee has to agree on all questions that come before it. Forming a work group would be a question, and who's on that work group would also be a secondary question.
That is
well as-
legitimate. That's correct.
So I believe discussion would be best, if we are going to compromise on the barriers, to have at least some members from the public who are either in the middle or on the no side, so we can have some.
Yeah,
So
I
let
think Alderman Kathy, what you're basically doing is you like to vet the appointments, basically.
Or make new appointments if necessary.
That could be a possibility at the will of the board.
Could I make a motion?
Make the motion, please.
I would like to make a motion that we accept Director Cummings' recommendation to form a working group committee that includes the full Joint Special Committee of Infrastructure and PEDC, to include up to 5 members of the public, referred to the entire committee by both co-chairs and confirmed, to be on the working group.
There's a motion. Discussion on the motion? Alderman Como.
Yes, thank you. I would agree with Alderman Moran's motion. I think that a lot of talk has been made about this in the spirit of compromise. And in order to come to a decision in the middle, you need to hear from the extremes to find where we fall in the center. So I think that it would be appropriate for compromise and for, transparency and cooperation, that we have a couple of additional voices to help us understand the concerns of, everybody who might be affected by this legislation.
Alderman Theobald.
So I look at it this way, the proposal that's on the table now is technically the first compromise, right? Because the extreme would be last year, right? So there's already been somewhat nudged towards the middle. So if we're putting people who are no on this, and they're gonna be no matter what are they gonna add to it other than saying, I don't want barriers? And we probably already have someone on the board here anyway. So adding somebody that's going to talk about it in the spirit of compromising even more and pushing that even more towards the middle, they're just gonna say no. They don't want them. So I don't understand why somebody that's going to be dead set against them would be on a committee to try to work through this issue. It doesn't make sense to me. We already know they're gonna be a no. So I'm not supporting this. I'm gonna be on the end, probably the wrong vote again tonight.
Alderman Kathy.
To Alderman Tebow's point, I believe it is short-sighted to assume that someone who's already a no wouldn't budge a little bit. When I first saw the barriers 2 years ago, I was a firm no way. Some people make good points. I've been swayed in some conversations to maybe support the barriers. I'm still working that all out. And so I think having robust dialogue with the public does help sway some people. And also, if you want to have full transparency and be able to CYA for the public, you have the people who are no, so you can say, we did the best job we could with all sides involved, and this is what we arrived on. Now, obviously, if those members of the work group are obstinate, then we can vote to remove them if progress is not being made, but hopefully there would be a good faith effort that they would understand that this is what we're working towards, and so let's have some positive input rather than just no all the time. And I think that's possible, but I could be incorrect in that assumption.
Alderman Dowd.
And just for the record, I believe that if whatever the committee ends up being of 3 or 5, they provide us with input, but they have no voting power on this. Only this committee members have a voting power. So, and I would prefer we don't get anyone that, on the committee that may take up an inordinate amount of our time trying to get their opinion across.
Alderman Como.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In Mason's section 640, item 2, it says a committee for deliberation should represent all the important factions so that its opinion will carry as much weight as possible. A committee should also consist of representation from both sides of a question where there is clear division, because the committee will also be subject to charges of bias if any faction is not represented. So I don't think it's fair for us as a body to say people that we know are not going to agree should be excluded. I feel like that's a charge that the public has already made in earlier conversations that bodies of this government have had. You know, there've already been charges that people were excluded that wanted to be a part of the process, and they feel like they were excluded because they felt that their views were not in line with the groups that they were hoping to join. So I just don't think it would be appropriate for us to try to, say that someone doesn't agree with me, so I'm not gonna let them be part of the process. That would just be wrong.
I hope the alderman is not accusing me of stacking the deck, because that would be the farthest thing from my mind.
No, I only think that it might be in our best interest to add a couple of people, not necessarily exclude the ones you've
Your
already
point's
mentioned.
interesting, but I did not stack the deck. Thank you. Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to thank you. You've chased us all into Masons, and we're all reading Masons.
Actually, Alderman Jettie, I'm pretty impressed. It might help out a lot. Thank you.
So, something that I noticed when I read Masons is that a committee can appoint a subcommittee, but the subcommittee has to be members of the legislative body. It cannot be, the subcommittee cannot include members who are not, in our case, aldermen. So, you've used the term working group, and we've kind of confused that with, subcommittee. I know other cities have appointed a task force to study this issue. Both Portsmouth and Concord that I know, because I've looked into it, both of those cities, had groups, task force, or they've called them by different names, but not subcommittees, to representatives of of the community, including aldermen and or city councilors, and members of the the affected groups, the public, the retailers, the restaurateurs, the property owners, and those groups formed they were appointed, and they discussed it, and they came up with a recommendation, which is what I think that we had in mind. Of course, I think it was only you and me on the committee back in December. The rest of the committee members are new. But back in December, we kind of talked about this. Some of the restaurant people, some of the retail people. Mr. Lannon was there as a property owner. Saying let's get together, let's come up with a plan, let's compromise was used several times. So I personally, I think other people did too, kind of thought that that's what we would do. We would appoint a group that would look at this and come up with a recommendation. And now I'm thinking, to follow that through, maybe we need to add some people. I know there's no one from the restaurants here. There's no one from the non-Main Street citizenry here. So maybe we can add a few more people to this working group or task force to examine the plan that Mr. Cummings has come up with, which he's still working on. And then, make a recommendation to this committee, who could then, vet it further, and then finally make a recommendation to the full board as to, what plan we should adopt, for the next year or two or three, for Main Street. So, I just wanted, I'm in favor of getting input, but to Alderman Dowd's point, he's correct. The subcommittee cannot include non-members, but a task force could, or a study group, or whatever you want to call it, working group, I think you called it at one
Right.
point. Those terms could all be used, but ultimately it would come back to this, either this subcommittee or this committee, this joint committee, and then we would, make a decision as to what we recommend to the full board of aldermen.
Alderman Baldwin.
Actually, hearing that.
Excuse me, Warren, excuse me.
No worries. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After hearing that, I would withdraw my original motion and propose a new motion, similar to what Alderman Jettie has mentioned, thanks to his awesome knowledge of Masons, which I read the last several nights till 4 a.m, to propose a task force made up of the members of this committee and 5 members of the public, recommended by the co-chairs of this committee, who are stakeholders in the expanded dining downtown.
Okay, the motion has been withdrawn. We have a new motion.
And I would like to speak to my motion, I'm sorry.
All right, you're recognized to speak on your motion.
The only reason, I'm very supportive of expanding downtown dining. As you can see, I'm an endorser on this. I think we need to be as transparent as possible and follow a very good process, because at the end of the day, we need to make sure we can do what is right for the majority of the city. And my feelings is we're gonna come down to expanded outside dining, but it has to include people from all sides. And I'm not talking about provocateurs, and I wanna make that very clear. I'm not gonna invite someone who's just gonna dig their feet in. I would actually want these 3 people on as well. I think they're excellent people. But we need to be transparent so this does not come and bite us all in the butt, excuse my language, because we need to show the city that we can be transparent. And that's the main focus of my motion.
Alderman Tebow.
With all due respect to Alderman Camo, I would have to assume if 3 of these people were people that were for removing the barriers permanently, he would not even have read Masons on it, just because he has been pretty vocal on Facebook for a long time that he does not support these barriers, and which is fine. He has the right to do that. But I think that's why this is coming out. And to your point, Alderman Moran, provocateurs, I guess, is the nice word to say it, but putting somebody on there that, we've had emails from people that have said they've been bullied into signing a petition. We've had people that have said they signed it not knowing exactly what they were signing, or to get somebody out of their business. What I want is somebody that doesn't want, if we're gonna pick somebody that's gonna be a no, or doesn't want berries at this time, I want somebody that's gonna be honest about it and at least have an opinion. I don't want them coming to a subgroup going, I have 600 surveys, or I have 600 people that have signed this 4 months ago. We can't, that doesn't help us get to the middle, or to no barriers, or 2 barriers. We need people that are gonna be able to work within the group. And some of the people who've spoken here last week, the people that don't want them, they're not saying, they're just yelling and screaming about it, or they're yelling at us. And if we can find some people that are going to be truthful about this and actually work for compromise, then that's fine. But to your point, I don't want somebody out there just saying, I don't want barriers. They have to be able to speak to it and talk about it and try to compromise, I guess.
All right, Alderman Dowd, and then,
Just a couple things. I think your motion said 5 members of this committee.
No, the entire committee,
And then 5 members of the
and then 5 members of the public for a task force.
5 members from this group?
No, this whole
This
committee.
entire group, this entire joint, I'm sorry, am I
So
speaking?
all 9 of us
Yeah.
plus.
So 5 is a majority, so I would suggest 4, maybe 4 and 4.
No,
You're
the
not
whole, I'm sorry. Can I speak?
Alderman Wiltshire, I
Thank
think
you.
an explanation would be appreciated.
What he's saying is this joint committee and 5 members of the public.
Oh, all right, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So those members of the public should give us their opinions on what they think about downtown dining, pros and cons. I also would like to have, before we go too far, have us go around the circle here and get a very quick overview of what people think they would like to see in the compromise without getting into a lot of detail, and see just how much differentiation there is, because we may not be too far from the answer, and we don't need to do 14 hours of research to find out we're all on the same page. So I think if we go around and say, get a broad idea of what people are thinking, we may not be that far off. So it's up to the chair.
Alderman Kathy.
Question for the motion, Alderman Moran. You said nominated by the co-chairs, so the 2 of you would come up with some names and then throw them in the hat?
What I would have proposed is accept Mike's 3, and I would solicit feedback from this committee and Mike, the mayor's office, and just downtown businesses. I'm gonna be in Martha's tomorrow night, so I'll be walking around.
Alderman Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I motion to move the question.
The chair will hold on that because the chair would like to be recognized to speak. Thank you, and thank you for the courtesy. I'm not gonna get hung up on the name, it's kind of schematic. Task force to me meant a whole bunch of fire trucks. I don't think they're talking fire trucks. But the thing is, here, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. The thing is, if I can recommend, is the workability of the group. Already with the 2 committees, it's a larger group. And when I considered and looking at this, in my management studies, it's called the span, many of you probably have heard of it, but the span of control, you know. And I wanted to take that into consideration, not to eliminate, but to have a workable group. So keeping that focus to that particular point of view of the span of control within the workable group, you know, I do realize I'm riding a bunch of Wild Max Mustangs here, and that's good. But with the people that came in, I did give a lot of consideration. What would be the quantitative quality from our community of people we would like to see? And so again, if I may reiterate, I looked at the organization of the Downtown Improvement Committee, which is Mary Lou Blaisdell, to which every business is, and she can verify, and you could vet her if you so wish, but every business downtown basically contacts her and brings up their points of view, and she is the focal point of downtown. So she brings from that the workable community group. The other person that I chose was Paul Shea. The reason Paul Shea, he's currently now on the Board of Aldermen, and as you know, we're moving, I misspoke, Board of Public Works, thank you all. Board of Public Works, and I'm sorry, Mr. Shea, for your promotion for this, thank you. But he brings past experience of another group, legitimate group, that this Board of Aldermen, besides the Downtown Improvement Committee, we seek counsel from sometimes with the Great American Downtown. So he brings a double oomph, in my opinion, into this committee format. And then the third person I did look, and that was a hard person to try to find. And I'm so gracious that Kathy Cotton-Smith did volunteer to come into that. Now, I'm not objection to saying I picked the three most important wizards, but believe me, I did, and I think you know in my explanation, I did give a lot of thought to it, and I think we made some good choices. I'm not gonna get married to just limit it to the three if that's the wish of the board. But again, I urge you to consider the people that could be chosen in the future, or these existing three wonderful people who did volunteer when asked to come forward. That to keep the group within a workable range, and that's why I limited to the three. I think the goals and objectives here is the more important. So I'm willing to go with what the decision of the board is. So thank you. So we did have Alderman Kathy to move, and I did ask for a privilege. Can we allow Alderman Dowd to?
Yeah.
He does yield to Alderman Dowd.
I just wanted to add that during the pandemic, Paul Shea organized all of the businesses downtown from one end to the other, kept a lot of them in business, helped them get through all the federal paperwork, got the right people to come in from the state and federal government to speak to them. He has a close knowledge and working relationship with companies from one end of town to the other. And I applaud him for that. There's a lot of small businesses here in Nashua would be out of business if he hadn't taken that initiative. So I think he brings a lot to the table.
Okay, thank you. We do have Alderman Kathy, you still want to move, to basically move the question. I will ask a little privilege. Can Alderman Moran, can you just re-quote, just to make sure that we're all, because there was a lot of discussion, so can we just?
I motion for, to form a task force that consists of every alderman that is a member of this joint special committee, in addition to 5 members of the public, recommended by the co-chairs of this joint committee. I would say 3 of whom have already been selected and are here present today. That's my motion.
Okay, everybody clear on the motion? Point of order, I'm gonna call for the vote then. Point of order, just in case, we should get in the habit, but it is the tradition to call the co-chairs at the last, because we get to break the tie. Okay. So that's part of the big game here. So if you could call Alderman Moran and then myself, and then that's part of the privilege. It's not much, it's not a parking space, but it's a privilege.
So you're calling by roll call rather than voice vote?
I think we could probably do it on the voice, but I'm just making sure. If the reason is if I have questions, I'm anticipating. If I have questions, then I will go to a roll call.
Okay.
Okay? I don't know how many nays we'll get, so I'm just preparing. Okay? Clear, everybody understood? All right, therefore, let's see if we could do it on a voice vote. All those in favor of Alderman Moran's motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One nay?
One night.
Okay,
One nay.
thank you. One nay.
So can I make a parliamentary inquiry?
Oh, you're entitled, yes, indeed,
So, given that we're gonna be forming a task force to solicit information from these potential 5 members of the public, this meeting tonight, and maybe this is a question for Alderman Wilshire, is this a regular meeting of the Committees on Infrastructure and PEDC, or is this a meeting of the working group?
This is a meeting as published of the joint committees.
So if that's the case, would it be appropriate to table this and then schedule a time for that task force to get together, make their discussions, and then, if I understand correctly, that task force would then refer it back to this committee, which we obviously, I don't think we can do tonight. Then this committee would discuss the recommendations of the task force and then decide whether to send it back to the full board. Is that my understanding?
Okay, yeah. Alderman Kathy?
Is that possible?
And-
Isn't voting on the work group part of the discussion of the ordinance? Part of the ordinance is coming up with the work group. If I'm understanding it correctly, so we couldn't table it and then have a separate discussion about members of the working group, if I'm understanding
Yeah.
it correctly, but
I mean, my recommend, don't get too hung up, like a working group, task force,
No, I'm just saying, could you
beach landing, I don't know.
Could you
I
make
mean,
that
it's
group
like, you know,
separate? Could you create that group separately
Point
from
of
the
order.
ordinance?
you know.
Point of order.
Yes, I'm gonna recognize you, Alderman Clemmons, but
We just voted for the structure, and the structure is all of us plus 5 people. So there is no, the 5 people go and do everything, it's all of us
all of us.
and 5, that's what we just voted on.
Right. Thank you, Alderman Clemmons, yes. Alderman Dowd?
Yeah, so this meeting was advertised as a joint meeting, If we're going to have a working group with those other 5 people, we ought to advertise it as a working group and no motions, just discussion.
Beach landing.
Beach
Right.
landing.
And then we have some decision of the working group, then we can come back to this committee at a real meeting and vote on it.
Well, that's correct. I think the procedure at Alderman Wilshire, please correct me if I'm wrong, but basically from this working group, you know, where the current members will take the input, the citizen, for lack of a better term, but the volunteers that are coming in, you know, they'll have input in the vote and as we work on the different type of things. This is going to be very much structured, similar to what was the committee that was formed, Alderman Wilshire, when you had the police commission, you know, where you picked people and everything else like that to be on it. So after that, since members of the committee are here, the civilians can't make the recommendation to go back to the board, but at that time, we're convened, and the board may decide, okay, this is it, this is what we're gonna nail, and they could take it at that particular time, and with the recommendation, because everything that comes out of committee is a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, and they could come out with that recommendation, whatever it may be, to the full Board of Aldermen. That's the goal. Okay, Alderman Clemmons?
I'm going to put you both on the spot, but do the co-chairs agree that the 3 folks who are in the audience right now are going to be on the?
That was in my motion.
That was part of the
That was
motion.
part of the motion.
Okay,
Yeah,
so.
Well, these people are great with me.
Okay, so my question is then, hopefully, my point is that I guess hopefully they will bear with us and continue forward because
Yeah.
this was
I
a little bit
know, and I
unexpected,
thank
and
you.
I hope
Yeah.
that they will, you know, continue on volunteering. And I guess the other point that I would like to make is that I hope that we can get the other 2 folks together soon, so that we can move this process forward, because the last thing that I would like to see is this to drag on and on and on. The time frame on the ordinance is May 15th. One of the things that I've heard from businesses downtown is that they need time to figure out, if we are gonna do this, to figure out staffing, to figure out, you know, what their plan for the summer is gonna be. So we need to move on this. So I'm, I guess, a little bit disappointed that this came up this way it did tonight, but it is what it is, and let's move forward, so.
And Alderman Clemmons, thank you so much. And I'll ask for your grace, without objection, just to facilitate what we're doing here. What would the committee like to do? It seems like you want 2 more members on the committee. I think the co-chair and I could find 2 members. Would that be satisfactory to you? So the thing is, I'm looking for the way that would be satisfactory to this particular board. Would it be that you could make recommendations that the co-chairs can make a decision on and then come back with recommendation to the board? But understand, as we go through this process, the clock is tick, tick, tick. The calendar moves. And if we have the potential of a May 1st, there's only, I think Alderman Dow will tell us, it's getting to be what season?
Budget.
Budget season. And for you new aldermen, it is exhausting, So I'm looking at the format, and Alderman Clemmons brought up a good point, so give some thought here. So Alderman Como.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Seeing that Alderman Moran's motion, more or less for lack of a better word, confirmed the 3 appointments that you've made previously, I would be okay with Alderman Moran sending up 2 of his own to complement the 3 that we've already got, if that is agreeable to the rest of the committee.
Alderman Wiltshire.
I like that idea. I think that works. I think that's really kind of what we decided, right?
Okay.
When we
I like it
pass the
too.
motion.
I got my 3, I'll give you 2.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Ready?
But
Shake on it, there you go, all right.
Follow up?
Alderman Wiltshire, please.
It may be the case that you have to schedule extra meetings to get this done and,
Yes, well, it's my intention, without objection, I'm gonna book a date next week, okay? And I have a little leeway with your alderman, you're kind of committed to the cause, and God bless you, you know what I mean? But the trouble is, I want to give fair and concern. So, not demanding Alderman Moore, but can you work on the quick on this and to get the choices? Because I'm hoping, it seems like tonight is a bust, okay? There's no need to get into the plans because we haven't got 2 members of the board that of what we decided. So after this, I'm gonna call for, an adjournment very shortly here, because there's no need to carry on. So basically that, but we're gonna start over here if you don't mind. Alderman, we'll go down the line, Alderman to you.
Thank you, Chairman, Mr. Chairman. Since we're here and like you said, it's a bust, can we do what Alderman Dowd suggested and go around, so at least we kind of know where we stand as a committee? And like he said, we don't have to go into, details, but
Not
at
a
least.
final decision, just.
Yeah,
what
not
you're
any kind of
thinking that-
final thing, but just kind of know where our head's at. That would be interesting to know, so at least we know where our starting point is.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going around the horn.
Okay.
I can yield if need be. Alderman Moran, you would choose the 2, and then they would be accepted, I guess, unilaterally by yourself, and then you would bring them to the next meeting? Or are we voting on them? How did you, I'm just thinking about the public wanting to see how that process works and just.
Maybe for time's sake, just picking the 2 and bringing them to next meeting. But when it was my turn, I was gonna say, please email me recommendations. I also want to talk to the mayor's office and see if he has ideas as well. So there's a, collaborative decision between now and whenever we schedule for next week.
And Alderman Moore, not to put you on the spot, but Alderman Kathy does. I'm sure you'll elicit contact information if, in the example, Alderman Kathy has some points or something he wants to bring up, you'll be most receptive to,
Very
Yeah,
much.
just,
I'm
trying to avoid
Yeah,
another
no.
kerfuffle,
yeah,
as it
no,
were.
and thank you.
And
Thank
maybe
you.
perhaps I could send a communication before to get on the agenda for the next meeting with who I'm thinking, so people
Right,
can see.
and a cautionary tone, send it to our administrative assistant, and they'll put it out to the whole particular board. That would be grand. Okay, Alderman David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I almost got Tyler too, I know. Excuse me.
He's
I-
Irish.
I agree with my colleagues from Ward 8 and 2. If we could try to do something at least productive during this meeting while we assemble the beach landing, I think that would be probably best for us all here.
Yeah, thank you. Alderman Dow.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with Alderman at large Moran picking the two people. I think he'll do a good job in that, so. And just be careful, do not copy the entire board, or there are certain people that sit over in that corner that are gonna go bananas.
Yeah, that's why I suggested
Just
the-
to Donna, yes.
Yes, the whole board needs to be cognizant of that, and I guess that was the big thing, but I have another thing we get later on, but that's it.
Thank you.
Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. The group did take a vote on the three people that are here.
That's correct.
So when Alderman Moran brings in his choices, I think there should also be a consensus vote or vote on that. You know, it just makes sense.
Procedurally.
And I don't think tonight was a bust. I think tonight was,
No, I know, maybe it was a little.
it wasn't really, you know, but we do need to move
Right,
forward.
I would have, yeah, thank you, Ms.
My name's Lori.
Yeah. Believe me, I've been 2 days up in Concord, my brain's fried, but yeah, no, not a bust, maybe use the, you know, sometimes I use not the right vernacular, but the thing is, it did stop us unfortunately, but I have no objections, we got a lot done anyways, but I was kind of hoping to get into the meat and the potatoes of the issue, but we could do that at a subsequent meeting, so, but thank you, you know, so correcting. Anybody, comment is Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, thank you. You know, to Alderman Dowd's point about, you know, we have to be very cognizant of 91A and the instructions that Attorney Bolton has given us. So in that regard, you know, I did, you know, mention, you know, I did look at what Portsmouth has done and what Concord has done. And, you know, you heard one of the speakers, you know, talk about Portsmouth and how they charge a fee. And so I did learn that Portsmouth for this year has adopted their outdoor dining plan. And they charge $5 a square foot for the sidewalk area, and then $1,500 per parking space that the restaurants utilize. And similarly, Concord just adopted theirs, and the assistant city manager of Concord very kindly emailed me what they just adopted 2 nights ago, I think it was. And so I brought copies of that, which I'm going to distribute at the meeting in compliance with 91A.
We heard about that.
So, in Concord, similarly, they charge, for the parking spots, it's $1,000. This is for the season. And for the sidewalk, it's $3.50 a square foot, so less than Portsmouth. Both cities only allow the restaurants to utilize the area in front of their establishment, you know, whatever they're renting or whatever they own. They can also go to their abutters, either abutters, with the abutters' written permission. So, so that's an interesting point. And so, so I wanted to make that point. I will now, you know, distribute
Well, you can distribute after the
in
meeting.
plain view.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, I think you're fine.
Okay.
You know?
And as far as the straw poll is concerned, I'm uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think it's, you know, I understand what you're trying to do, and I think it's, you know, a good idea. But it kind of, you know, it almost says, you know, we've already made up our minds, and it kind of devalues the you know, the input that will be provided to this task force. And let's, you know, the motion adopted the term task force, so let's use that. So it kind of diminishes the value of the task force if we already say, you know, this is how I feel about it. You know, knowing that we can always change our minds, but I think it's better to, you know, keep, you know, let's wait until we get the input, and then, you know, because we may, you know, you may think one way now, and all of a sudden something comes up during those meetings, or that meeting, whatever it is, you know, or, you know, you might look at what Concord has done and say, hey, here's some good ideas here, and this changes my mind about the whole thing. So I would be against taking a straw poll. You know, when we vote, and I'm against, you know, test voting, so to speak. So, thank you.
I thank you, Alderman Jettie. I would encourage all members of the board to keep an open mind on this, to do our diligence and to work with this. And I think pretty much everybody will, because nothing's a given. As we do get into the work group, task force, whatever, I think we're gonna find there is a possibility a situation may arise that will need attention. Not saying, I don't see a deal breaker, but anything could happen. So we need to be able to be flexible and to work. And so nothing's a gimme, you know what I mean? And I don't think anybody here, as we work with this, would be. On the fees, thank you for that. I don't want to touch it with infrastructure with a 10-foot pole, you know what I mean? Because I think that in itself might be a lot of work in the future. And I think I appreciate you tackling that, because it needs to be discussed. And maybe the recommendation of this committee moving forward to get into that and to work that out in the future and everything. So thank you, Alderman Jettie. I appreciate it.
I think I was able to answer my question.
Okay.
Yeah, you all set?
Yeah, I was all set.
Okay, we'll start again around the horn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Alderman Jettie, I can be wishy-washy. And to prove it, I'm going to withdraw my support for Alderman Dowd's straw poll at this time, so.
Yeah, Alderman Kathy.
This may be incorrect, but I'd like to make a motion that can we refer things to task force? So should we be referring this ordinance
Well,
to the task force
in
upon its
theory-
formation?
In theory, the task force is these, right here, what you see.
Right.
And those three lovely people, plus two that to be named
Right.
later, so
But you could,
they're here.
you
know?
you could say upon the formation, or is it because it's, I'll yield to.
All right, maybe
Alderman
Alderman
Clemens.
Clemens
yeah,
can
I can
help me out.
Help us out here.
What I think we should, you want this, correct?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept and place this on file.
Thank you, Alderman Clemens, that's perfect. This is a.
And then, and to speak to that, if I could,
Please do.
once we put it on file, we can then refer to it.
I'm talking about the ordinance that at the end of the meeting, we have to do something with it.
Oh, we would, so if I could, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, yeah,
please.
we would table the ordinance, once we're
Okay.
done talking about it here, we'll table it, and then when we reconvene with the full group again, then
That's
it would
correct.
come up. But
Yeah.
I still think it's a good idea to accept and place this on file, because then that way it's in
It's
part of the
part of
record,
our,
and we can
received
discuss
the
it,
document,
and.
correct.
So then we're voting on that motion?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but so you know, as with the budget season, theoretically, when we work on the budget, as you'll see in the future, everything gets tabled and then brought back off the table to be
Yep.
discussed, put back on the table. And so this may happen with this committee several times.
Fair point, then I move that we vote on that motion, that Alderman Clemens put on the.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Dowd?
I think
I'm
Well,
all set.
did you,
Yeah, I have no problem with voting on that. I was also gonna say that we don't have to do what I suggested tonight, we can do that later. It's just at some point, maybe when we hear a few more inputs, we saw, because my thinking is, have several ways I could go. And the one thing I did wanna state was, in the end, whatever this majority of this group decides is what will be recommended to the full Board of Aldermen. And what they decide is cast in concrete, no pun intended. But, that's the way it will go. And I think there's some compromises that we can still make to make things much more appeasing to a lot more people, so.
okay, Alderman Moran?
So just general discussion, but on this.
Well, we do have to accept the communication.
Yeah.
There is a pending motion on the
Yeah,
table.
let's do that first.
Do you want?
Let's do
okay.
that first. and
All
then
right.
raise my hand.
Any other further discussion on the motion to accept the correspondence? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Correspondence accepted. Alderman Moran?
So, I think it's okay to talk about what we could change now, since we're all here, and eventually this will be the body that makes that recommendation to the full board. And I'll just start, and if anyone else wants to add stuff, but I do think it should be Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend. One, my thinking on that is, kids are gonna be out of school, there's not gonna be as much traffic downtown. People leave and go for vacation, it's less of an impact on the traffic pattern. Two, that's summertime. Memorial Day, Labor Day, official end of summer is technically Labor Day. We all know to go up to the beach Labor Day weekend. So that's one of the things. And it also might allow us to bring Peddler's Daughter back into the fold, because now we're not gonna have as much traffic up at that right-hand turn. We can add more space for them, because we did hear him speak and say that he really wants to be included. So we look at ways we can subtly change this, like shortening the time, maybe giving some space back to Peddler's Daughter, and definitely in year 2 or year 3, I would need to see some fees in an application process for restaurants to defray cost. That's where the 3 main things I'm at. So.
Okay. Alderman Tebow?
Thank you, Chairman. So to Alderman Moran's point, I'm still not gonna give up my thoughts because I already changed my mind once. But to your point about timeframes, and again, we probably shouldn't discuss details, but I was curious because Alderman Jettie had talked to Portsmouth and Concord, and I was wondering if you got their timeframes, like when do they do it to and from? Because that would be interesting to see how other cities mark their expanded dining times.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
So I don't remember what Portsmouth is, but Concord is April 15th to November 15th.
Yes, Alderman Wiltshire?
I don't mind the shortening, but I think going a little past Labor Day, because it's still summer technically, and that's when you want to be outside, until maybe Columbus Day, which is only a few weeks later, but, I mean, that's your decision to
See
make
the
at
point
this
of having
point, but-
conversation right there.
But at this, Alderman Clemmons, and I'll get right back. Not that I'm trying to say anything, I understand, the point that you made, but again, it seems 2 people here aren't of the working group, and we'll probably gonna rehash this when the group gets formed. So I'm not objecting to it, but keep in mind how much time, because that's one of the issues I think that we'll really get our teeth into when the group is formed, so that those questions will come up. But I understand the bantering and, and no problem at all. Alderman Clemmons?
I have opinions about what was said, but I mean, generally speaking, on the fees, I agree that there should be fees at some point in the future. But I believe that, that not this year. And the reason I say that is because I wanna give, we're coming out of the pandemic, right? Hopefully, knock on wood, right? We're coming out of it. So really, this is our first opportunity, if we're gonna do this, to see what life post-pandemic really will be. And so the restaurants need a chance to kind of see what their customer base is gonna look like, you know, having these barriers. They need to be able to look at what their books are gonna look like, to be able to determine later on, you know, year 2, if doing a fee, if they're willing to pay. So, and not to say that we wouldn't charge the fee, we'll charge the fee, but is it gonna be worth it for them, I guess, would be the question. So, I think there's a lot of studying that needs to be done, both on, for the point of view of the restaurants as well as the city. I think we have an opportunity, if we do this, to study traffic. Because if we're gonna narrow Main Street, if that's the objective that Director Cummings brought out, then maybe that's something else that we can take advantage of while we're in this narrowed atmosphere. So there's a lot of different things on both sides that I think needs to be discussed, and I'm excited to move forward and have the discussion.
I do have in the queue Alderman Como, and I'll get to you, Alderman Dobbs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a legislative or parliamentary inquiry. I don't believe we have a motion on the table right now.
No, we don't want.
So I don't know if we should either make a motion or save this for the next time we convene.
I think we do, we have the main motion.
We only moved to take it off the table. We never made a motion to recommend final passage.
Correct.
No.
So
It's off the table, so we're
Yeah,
discussing, right?
it's,
It's a,
Right.
goes back to the final
I thought we had
motion.
to
Once you
introduce
take it
the
off the
question
table.
before we could discuss it.
Yeah, once you
Yeah,
take
we
it off
already
the
did
table,
when we
it's up
took
for
it off the
discussion.
table. Yeah,
Thank you for the clarification.
yeah. Alderman Down.
Yeah, one thing as we go along, and some of the things that Alderman Clements just mentioned, I see my friend Dan Hudson, the city engineer, is online. When it comes to questions about what can and can't be done on Main Street, I think that he should be part of that discussion, because Main Street belongs to DPW. So, any changes need to be worked out with DPW. He's probably gonna kill me for mentioning his name. But I think, you know, when it comes to what we're going to do, he's a key in that, player in that.
Alderman Wilshire.
Well, it just so happens that there's someone who's a commissioner of Public Works.
Not an engineer, though.
No, but he's the right person. You need-
Alderman
do you need the
Kathy.
information?
I'd like to make a motion to table 22008 to the next meeting.
A motion to table is non-debatable, but if I may, without objection, we had 3 citizens that came here and would have liked to, you know, but through our process, and we did well, and I think we did very good. But I will wonder if you would allow me the indulgence to introduce them formally to the board and thank them for joining the committee, and let them come up and introduce themselves if you would like to grant that privilege.
I think that, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. It can happen at
Thank
any
you,
point, but
I
sure.
think, because unfortunately, they did make the commitment, and I'm most gracious. So can you please come up and come to the microphone, please? And, I would like you just to introduce yourselves to the committee and everything else like that.
Thank you very much. My name's Paul Shea. I am no longer the Executive Director of Great American Downtown. I have come up here for 7 years and introduced myself that way. I am a downtown resident. I live in French Hill. And you'll be hearing probably in about a week or two about the new Executive Director for Great American Downtown. I am also on the Board of Public Works as a commissioner, thank you. But I certainly can't speak for the full board. And Mr. Hudson certainly has a wealth of expertise that I can in no way replace. I just want to mention Alderman Dowd had some nice comments. I appreciate that. But it's also important to recognize that Director Cummings, the Chamber of Commerce, SBDC, and everybody had a lot of teamwork, and I can certainly carry no great deal of responsibility for the good things we did together. That's it.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Blaisdell, would you like to come forward and introduce yourself to the board, please?
Good evening, Mary Lou Blaisdell. I live at 32 Webster Street. I also own Design Wares on Main Street. I've owned it for 16 years. And I do chair the Downtown Improvement Committee. Couple points I'd like to make. A couple people have said that there's not there's the impression that we're not representative of pros and cons on this. And Kathy and I have been those two that have been pro and con, and she and I have discussed this at length and have really come together on what we think would work. She has a very strong, and I'll let Kathy speak for herself, but a very strong input that has been given to her from those that are opposed. I have too. I've spent the last couple weeks on the phone every day with people that are opposed and for. So I think that the two of us have a good knowledge base of where downtown stands with this. And I think it's extremely important that in the next working group, a decision is made, because time is of the essence for downtown, not just for the restaurants, but for the retailers. They do have to hire. They do have to get, we have to get the barriers painted again. If a decision isn't made at the next working group, then it's too late. We're in March already. May is a few weeks away. We can't keep pushing this down. And I really hope that we resolve it next meeting, because if we don't, we're basically out of time. And thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you. And I'll call up Miss Kathy Carden-Smith, please.
Good evening, and I am Kathy Carden-Smith, and I live at 12 Woodland Drive. I also own the building at 125 Main Street, Carden Jewelers, which is going on 102 years, so I think our family's been around for a long time, and we have always looked to do the best thing for the city. And as Mary Lou has said, I have been opposed to the barriers. Took up too much of our parking and made it very inconvenient for many, many customers, seniors, handicap, and the like. Although in the last meeting, Tim Cummings, as I mentioned in our last talk, had done a great job of shifting things around and giving more parking, and I thought the parking study was quite interesting. I still feel we need to tweak things, and I am wanting to be the voice from the opposition that works things out with everybody. Mary Lou and I have known each other for a while now, and I just feel that we do have some individuals that are gonna stick their heels and their feet in and say, no, no, no. And that's not what the opposition, I think, is about. I think I represent the people that would like it tweaked, and would like it tweaked to the advantage of all, not just the restaurants. We have many, many businesses downtown that have felt the impact of that, the barrier situation. And I feel that we really need to look at that. And I love all our restaurateurs. I frequent them, and we're all working together. And I think that's my key thing. The other thing that I think is really key that's been mentioned, we need to slow the traffic down, but I also need to think that we need to have the 4 lanes. or 2 lanes and an emergency lane, or some kind of option for that. Because, and I've said it at many meetings, Mr. O'Brien has heard it over and over, it's gonna take someone not being able to get through Main Street and, have an issue up in the north end, Library Hill or whatever. And I think for the fact of that is one of my major concerns, that, and, I run a jewelry store, let's just say, okay? And when we had this whole thing with, I hope I'm not taking up too much time, but when we had this smash and grab thing that's been going on down in Massachusetts, as close as Lowell, okay? So you get a bunch of kids or individuals in a gang, they come in with their hoodies and they, smash the jewelry cases, they throw stuff in a bag or a case or a backpack or whatever, and they're out of there, okay? So what's to say someone doesn't cause a little, let's say, bloodshed, whether, we're in opposition of it. So we've got the barriers, okay? And if we only have 1 lane, I think of it, it could be someone in my staff, someone in my family that works with me or for me, myself. So I think that is important. I don't think that's really been brought up, but you're having banks and different issues of, and we're not immune to this stuff. We're trying to keep it out of the city, and we have a great police force, a great fire department, but those things have to be considered, And again, just as I mentioned, Mr. Moran, I was in opposition, and I still am in opposition to a point, but I will work to make this whole thing come together. I feel that that's what our jobs are here, everybody that's here, and then it will be good for the whole city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. To all 3 is from myself, and I'm sure members of the committee, thank you so much for your community involvement and willing to get involved with this. Your participation in anticipating the other 2 members who will be selected will really help this board come to a workable, situation that I think that could best enhance us all. So, thank you. I'm sorry we didn't get into the meat potatoes, but dinner's coming soon, so we'll be able to get into it. Okay, Mr. Cummings, Mr. Sullivan, I don't want to have you ignored. You can give us a wave that you're there. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, I think we did have a pending motion that you did basically allow me to grace, and I very much appreciate it. So, Alderman Cathy, do you want to restate your motion, please?
Motion to table 022008 until the next joint meeting to include the working group.
Thank you. There's a motion to table. Any discussion on them? There's no discussion on a motion to table. Excuse me. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, here's the battle plan. I gotta really coordinate. I didn't really know what was gonna happen tonight. I am so pleased with what happened tonight. I thank you all. I do thank you all. Particularly as I thanked 3 civilian or, people from the public participants. I think we're really gonna get something done here, but it needs to be discussed, so. I didn't anticipate the exact date, but I think I'm looking at something like Thursday or something like that. So I'm gonna be in communication with no objections to my co-chair. If you allow me, what I'll do is I'll try to coordinate with Donna and try to get a meeting. As we get on, Alderman Dow's gonna start eating into the scheduling budget, as usually what happens. That takes the higher priority. That's another issue that's coming up, is the availability to have space and people that are on the budget committee and everything else. And then the regular committee assignments that exist. So, we'll try to put this together. My goal is for next week, if that's okay. Alderman Clements.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, do you think that it would be a good idea too, that if particular aldermen have between now and then specific questions about the map, about the details, whatever, that they can direct those questions and hopefully bring back answers maybe to the next meeting, to kind of forward, to move that
And
along.
to, questions, just to clarify, like to Mr. Cummings? for-
Yeah, yeah, or.
Oh, I think I agree with you. I think as an alderman, every alderman has the right to seek the resources, as we all do. I call it doing the homework, for lack of a better term. But I think all aldermen, I think Director Cummings, but keep in mind, Alderman Cummings and Alderman, excuse me, not Alderman Cummings. I gave it a raise. Director Cummings and Director Sullivan. I mean, they got a lot of balls up in the air bouncing as running their particular projects, so just keep that in mind. But they are here for us as a valuable resource to connect with, so, yes. Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I don't think next Thursday's gonna work because we have a joint meeting of the Board of Public Works and the Infrastructure Committee just before the Joint Special School Building Committee at Nashua High North, so I think that day's taken up.
I knew there was something Thursday.
You scheduled it.
What about Wednesday?
Anybody want to meet tomorrow on St. Patty's Day? Nope.
No.
Okay, thank you. Just had to throw it out there. I'll work on the date, best I can do. Okay, I think we have something, we'll get back, because there is postings and everything that we have to comply to, so we'll try. And we may not, with the working group, be as formal as a traditional meeting, but we'll get going on that, or task force or whatever. Anybody else? Seeing none. Am I forgetting anything? Yeah, any general discussion? Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say a couple things. I won't use the remarks time at the end of the script. Instead, I'll use it here. Couple things. So I really think, and I know a lot of us are new, and I've made my share of mistakes. I certainly don't know half the stuff I need to know for everything, and I'm learning every day. But we got to get sharper on these kind of meetings. They don't look good. Like I said, they don't look good to our constituents, at least for mine. Like I told you what happened with mine earlier, and we've had other meetings where as things haven't gone, as smooth as they should, and it's not always because we're new. So I think we just got to get sharper for the people out there that rely on us to do the right job. And the other thing, I just wanted to commend Alderman O'Brien. I wish we could have had those citizens speak earlier, because they're exactly what we want on this committee. We got somebody that we know is probably for the barriers, somebody that's in the middle, and someone that's opposed that will actually work. And she brought up some great points at the end there, and I think those are the type of people we want. And so now we're gonna put 2 no's on there? That doesn't make sense. That it's gonna swing that thing totally, not the way it was supposed to be. We want people who want to discuss. And so I still raised my hand and said I voted nay on there, but I commend Alderman O'Brien. He did not put people on there. He put the perfect 3 people on there, in my opinion. So, and they're not here anymore, but I want to thank them for coming. I want to thank Director Cummings and Director Sullivan for being here and spending all their time back there and waving to us. I appreciate what they do every day, so thank you.
Anybody else? Alderman Clemmons.
Yeah, I think, I do think we're a lot of us, not myself, but a lot of us are new, and it's hard in a new group to not, when you've never been in government and maybe your only experience might have been watching from TV, to know exactly what you should and shouldn't do and what the procedures are and things like that. It's tough. I can remember when I was the first an alderman, and the thing, I was blessed because I went on a board where most of the people had been there for a long time. And so I was able to sit back and I could watch Alderman McCarthy, Alderman Dean, Alderman Wilshire, and Alderman Bolton at the time, and I could observe without having to have a lot of questions, because my questions would be answered. So we have 8 new aldermen, so it's this happens when you're in a new group of people, and I don't think it's, I think the public, what I think from my perspective is, yeah, maybe getting through a meeting might take a little bit longer, there might be more questions, there might be more parliamentary questions, things like that, but I think what the public wants to see is that we're working for the city and we're doing the things that the city, that we're doing the right thing for the city. That's what they voted for us to do. And, you know, if we're working together in that capacity, I think we can get through the hemming and hawing. So, don't put too much emphasis on it. Don't worry about it. It is what it is. We'll get through it. You're all a great group of people, and you have the interest of the city in mind.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that what Alderman Clemens says is exactly what I'm thinking. It's not the parliamentary inquiries. I don't want people to feel bad about that. That's exactly what we should be doing. We should be asking those questions. So that's not what I mean. I just mean some of the things that have gone in the last couple of meetings, and we just got to get better about that. And to your point, get to the working of the people. I know Ms. Carden Smith, or maybe it was Ms. Blaisdell, that said, we're running out of time on this. And so that's my point, really, right? We got to do what we got to do for the city. If we keep delaying this type of stuff, then we don't do what's right for the people on Main Street, right? They can't staff appropriately, all that. So that's really what I mean. It's not that when we ask a question or I make mistakes as a clerk, which I was terrible the other night. I get that part of it. It's the doing what we need to do for the city. That's exactly it. So thank you for saying that.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you. So I think, yes, there's nothing wrong with those three people, in my opinion. I think, again, the reason for part of my motion was for transparency. I had no idea. No, I didn't know. A lot of other members of the special committee didn't know. It was announced without us vetting and talking about it. That's what the people want, us to talk about it. We need to talk about it. If we had talked about it last week, I probably wouldn't have recommended to the other two people. I think what people want who are listening and paying very, very close attention to this is a big issue right now. They want us to talk about every aspect of what we're doing, from who's gonna be on this task force to how we make changes. And I commend Alderman O'Brien for selecting those three people. They were great. I just wish we could all have talked about it a little bit more because that's what will come to bite us in the butt. Like I said earlier, we need to be transparent.
Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. I thought you'd forgotten about me.
No, I figured you would be great for the
The
cleanup.
closer?
Yeah, the cleanup hitter, there you go.
Yeah, I want to thank every single one of you. I think tonight, we kind of realized that we need to work together. You know, hey, I make mistakes, everybody does, you know. I'm not perfect, Mike's not perfect, Rick's not perfect, probably Tyler, well, he's marginal. But
He's pretty good.
But I do appreciate that we, you know, had this conversation this evening and that we can move on from it and be a better board for it. So thank you all, each one of you.
Okay, Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Chairman O'Brien. So to Alderman Moran's point, so what's the transparency with these two that get picked, right? So you're gonna find something from either suggestions or whatever, and then you're just gonna bring them to the board like Alderman O'Brien did, and then we're going to vote on them. What if we vote one down? Do we have to start this whole process over again? Like, and how are we gonna tell the people what your process is? I'm just trying to make sure that, yeah, maybe there was no transparency there, but just talking about something that you're going to do now doesn't make it transparent. You know what I'm saying?
If I may, we announced that we are gonna have an infrastructure, a task force, and now they heard it. You know, it was a recommendation from Director Cummings. I think we had to take action on that recommendation, which we did tonight. Just at being announced, and not just the people of the public, people of this board were caught off guard. And that is what I think the difference is, that was discussed in quite depth. Every single person had their time.
Fair enough.
Okay, seeing no other further comments, I think, Alderman Cathy, your intention was to have public comment at the end of the meeting as well. So therefore, we'll move on to public comment. Please raise your hand. I think Ms. Ortolano, usual procedure, name, address, in 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I gotta go quick through this. I want to thank Alderman Moran. He's 100% correct. I think transparency has been missing, and the idea that this was a democratic process was missing. And I think a lot happened tonight that made that seem a lot better. I can tell you that I started putting in questions to Alderman O'Brien on December 9th about the construction of this committee and the process by what it was picked. And I was never able to get an answer. Even asking general questions and then formalizing them is right to know. And it was so frustrating to me that there was no process that was publicized that a citizen could learn about or understand how this was happening. You know, I really have a big issue with how Alderman O'Brien has handled this committee. I don't think he speaks clearly. I don't think he represents the committee adequately. I would have liked to have seen a change there. I also think that Derek is too closed-minded. He does not recognize the ability of people to shift and come together. I have been not for the barriers, but I'll tell you, it's not my hill to die on. And my issues have been life safety, cost to the taxpayers, and the fact that we charge nothing, traffic, and the lack of a democratic process. Now, I feel like the democratic process came in. I feel like these other towns that have costs that they are implementing and were able to do, we should be able to do that. I agree with Kathy Carden that we need more lanes of moving traffic. And I agree that we could use the full sidewalk and out to the parking spots on restaurants that want that space to have expanded space. I'm not 100% opposed. I can come together and negotiate, but you don't even allow your citizens to have that viewpoint. And frankly, Mr. Tebow, when you turn around and start a meeting calling my name out personally and saying, we already know what Lori Ortolano wants and she's against it, so we don't want to hear from her again, I think that's a violation of Mason's rules. I can't get a hold of the manual yet. Hopefully it'll be in the office tomorrow. But frankly, it's inappropriate. Citizens, and you aren't gonna have public comment. So I have to hear myself called out and put out there in a way that I'm categorized that may not be true, you know? And so it's really disappointing. I started my quest on December 9th for information on this committee.
30
It is now
seconds.
March 16th. I disagree with Mary Lou that you have to have it done in one meeting. You know, you're the guys who let this thing run by. It's not your public. You know, and I know Rick Dowd mentioned, hey, you know, I called out Dan Hudson. Oh, he probably doesn't appreciate that. I called him out by name. Well, you know, Derek, you call your citizens out by name. Me and another one, you know, Gary Wingate. Oh, we're the ones that are the problem. It's very disrespectful, and I think it's out of line with Mason's rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? We have nobody in the chamber. Seeing none. Remarks by Alderman? Okay, Alderman Tebow.
Yeah, I guess I lied. Sorry about that. I just, you know, I guess I want to apologize to Ms. Ortolano for calling her name out. But, you know, I mean, she's come to these meetings for a long time, and she's made her statements about the barriers. And so I you know, I felt the need to say that because I wanted someone more like Ms. Carden Smith, who does have an open mind. So I do have an open mind about this. I think I can change about different things, and I have already since I've been on this board. So, you know, I mean, she's, you know, and I will never say her name again if that's what she wants. But, you know, she feels free to call out every single person here, including everybody that works at City Hall. So I know it's good for one, it's not good for the other, maybe because I'm elected, but I still think that's, she's not very respectful to all of us and to all the people that work very hard in the city. And that's it. And I just want to say, I got Director Cummings to answer 2 questions for her tonight. No one else did, not the aldermen that support her or know her well. I got that. So, you know, I'm sorry I did that. You know, I tried to help you out, and so be it. So that's it.
Alderman Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. To Alderman Moran's point earlier about the transparency, I would tend to agree with his line of thought. For me personally, I am a process person. I don't care about the outcome. There's a lot of hills that I won't die on, and I'll sleep perfectly well. I care about the process and if it was done correctly, because if it is not done correctly, that creates more problems for us, more problems for City Hall, more right to knows, all kinds of issues that come up when we can do it cleanly the first time around. And so it was imperative for me personally that the city hear how we are doing this. We are going to have 5 members, those 3, and then 2 more. Those 2 are gonna be brought to the board, we're gonna vote on them. I think that's very important. Whether or not there's a deep process of interviewing them, I don't think that's necessary, but at least the public has an idea of, oh, hey, that's what they're doing. Because last week, I was super confused. I even talked to Alderman Moran afterwards, because I didn't understand really what was going on. Maybe that's because I'm new. So I think transparent doesn't mean you always see everything, but you at least have a better understanding of the process. And to me, it's all about the process. That's why you have parliamentary procedure, which, thanks to Alderman O'Brien, I know a lot more about now.
Can I just say, you gentlemen have impressed me. There is the clerk of the New Hampshire House, Mr. Paul Smith, and who is our parliamentarian. I can't wait to go back there tomorrow and tell him the success story. Really, thank you guys. That was good. I really do. He'd be honored. I'm pleased. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Alderman Dowd.
Just a couple things. One thing, by the way, it's always been my understanding from the 11 years I've been on the Board of Aldermen, even before that, that we use Masons as a guide, and we have the ability to not follow that if we take a vote of the people. So it's not, again, cast in concrete, to make another pun. Anyway, a couple other items. When we start the budget meetings, which have been delayed because the mayor has not talked to the department heads, and then he has to take the budget and present it to the Board of Aldermen before I can start having my meetings. So those meetings are getting compressed. There's a public hearing during the budget process where the public can come in and ask questions, and all the department heads are there, division directors are there to answer questions. When I have the budget meetings with the budget committee with the divisions, there is no public comment. It's a working session for the aldermen to talk to the division directors and them to talk to us to get answers on their part of the budget. And we take the motion, and then at the end of the meeting, we table it till the next one. We're gonna be having a lot of meetings. I am going to eliminate some of the people we normally talk to. One is the cemeteries. The reason being, the cemeteries don't get any money other than insurance and stuff from the city, which is, you'll find out more about later. The money that the city gives them is the part, not all, part of the interest they've earned on their trust funds, which they totally control. So it doesn't affect the tax rate, 1 iota. And those, usually there's no questions for them. So pulling them in here is a waste of time. If we have specific questions you want on a cemetery, I'll give you the names of the people you can call. And we may not bring the airport in, because if they're not asking us for any money this year, like last year, you know, it's not a find out about the airport session. You can do that by calling the airport manager. So I'm looking at the others, and of course, the biggest discussion will be the Board of Education, the school budget, as that's by far the biggest budget, and police, fire, DPW. So we'll be having the meetings have been already sort of set up, but until the mayor gives us the budget, we can't start really scheduling. So we're compressing the meetings, and those take priority over anything else, any other meetings. So that's why we've blocked off dates. So if you go for dates for something, she's gonna tell you it's got a budget meeting pre-scheduled. So there's that. The other thing is, we had a pre-construction meeting today on the new school, the new middle school down south. That's where all the divisions get together to talk about, make sure everything's okay on the plans. We have the construction plans and everything. And we are gonna be starting construction in earnest next Monday, 21st. So everything has been baptized, blessed, and put in holy water, and believe me, there are enough hoops to go through to get this far, unbelievable. So you can't believe how many things have to be signed off, how many permits you have to get, how many licenses and everything else. But we're good to go, and we're still shooting for fall of '24 to open that school. That's all I have.
Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. If there are departments that aren't gonna come before the budget committee, could we get a write-up?
Absolutely.
You know, something, you know, this is why our budget went up. They
Yeah.
don't have to spend an hour here trying to, you know,
Oh,
waiting
yeah.
and then talking to us for 5 minutes. If they
mean-
would write something, that would be helpful.
I had that discussion with the mayor and John Griffin, and they don't know why we ever brought the cemeteries in, to tell you the truth.
Well, I mean, if we had something in writing, just explaining how the
Oh, yeah.
year's going or whatever, or why they're asking for a little bit, well, they're not
I
asking
can
for
tell you right
money,
now, but I
right?
don't wanna take up that time.
Right, okay. And there was
Bingo, good
something
one.
else.
Okay.
There was
It's kind of
something
a
else,
dead
but I
subject
forgot.
with the cemeteries. Thank you for the liberty. Anybody else? Alderman Moore.
First, Alderman Tebow is a straight shooter. I campaigned with this guy in the last election, and he is very passionate. He is very involved. He knows his ward very well. It pains me to hear such negative statements. And as you could see, we both had a disagreement less than 5 minutes ago. But this guy advocates for his ward, so I just wanted to make sure that I put that on the record. Thank you. Two, I hope that any preconceptions of who I am as a alderman, we're kind of put to bed. You know, I want to make sure that things are done gracefully, and though I may have tempers outside of this chamber, I would not bring them here. But I do appreciate everyone's time and attention to the concerns I brought forth to all of you, and I really do appreciate that. And last thing, up at the State House today, I made sure I cleared every single one of my patients today to be up there because HB 1077 was tabled. You know, we were really hoping to kill it, but it got tabled. And that was a bill to bring back conversion therapy. I am so happy that that was tabled. I don't believe in it as a mental health practitioner. And I hope, you know, there was a win for LGBTQ plus kids today up at the State House. So I just want to announce that.
Here, here, yes. The only thing I got is, guess what tomorrow is? Okay. To all my Irish friends, I would like to say Lale Patrick, Sana Git, which is Gaelic for Happy St. Patrick's Day. My Irish is bad. My Nana would slap me in the back of the head if I mispronounced it, but anyways.
I could stand in for her.
You're good, you know. But I wish everybody all the best. Have a good time. Go out to your favorite establishments, but please, drink sensibly. If you need to, get an Uber, designated driver. Partake in the fun. The great thing about St. Patty's Day is the one day a year we're all Irish, and we welcome you all. So please be careful and have fun. So,
We should have a moment of silence for Killarney's.
yeah, well, since I quit drinking, I ended up closing the place. Alderman Kathy, did you have?
I do have a motion, but I have one thing, sorry, excuse me. Just wanted to remind the public, if there's anyone out there listening, that there is a town hall on the Elm Street building March 30th at 7 p.m. upstairs,
Or online.
6 p.m. or upstairs or online, talking about what the city and the public would like to do with that building. So please go if you can, and then I'd like to motion to adjourn.
I got skipped.
Sorry, Alex. I yield my motion.
He yields.
If I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just real brief, I appreciate I just want to say thank you to the three members that were here, even though they already left. I'm sorry that we didn't necessarily get anything done as productive as maybe they had hoped, I appreciate they came and sat with us for the time that they did. As far as the next meeting of the beach landing, the task force, I would just request that when that gets published, that it's clear, especially to me and also to members of the public who might be reading it, exactly what the process is gonna look like. Are we gonna be expected to be redlining the plan that we've already seen? Will we be soliciting suggestions for improvements, things like that? So I'm not sure what the format of a task force meeting will be, but if that could be included in the agenda, I would appreciate that. I'm sure that there's members of the public that would appreciate that as well. And as far as, you know, the additional 2 people, I think that I trust Alderman Moran enough to know that he's not just gonna go find the 2 most fervent opposition voices just to try to balance out something. But even if he did, it's not like they have veto power. So even if we listened to somebody who was just fervently against and was not willing to compromise, that doesn't mean they're gonna get their way. It just means that we're gonna hear them. And I think that's all that the public really expects of us. The idea that we're not gonna listen to somebody just because we think we know how they feel already or because we think that they don't feel the way we do is the wrong approach to take. We hear them, we don't necessarily have to do what they want, but we do have to listen. And I think that's all that the people want out of us. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Get your motion.
All right, we're all set. I think Alderman Kathy, I think you have the motion that everybody likes.
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody. We'll close the meeting at 9:26. Thank you.